Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I've already done a long voiceover where I read some comments, and I also am going to include this in the Journey series. I'm going to include that voiceover, and then of course this one as well. And the comments I got were from disgruntled Trumpers who, in one way or another, were offended by me calling Trumpers dumb fucks. And and I go into it, as I talk about for a half hour. And I went in, heating up some gumbo that I had frozen and making a salad for us for dinner. And I had this idea that this was something that I should include before. This is like a prequel to what I'm talking about. And so when you think about Trump, Trump did not appeal to people's better nature. He appealed to your lower nature, right? Trump appealed to everyone's lower nature. America first, that's narcissism. Let's put ourselves in front of everybody else. Fuck everyone else in the world. We're going to take care of ourselves first. And it really was about Trump first, right? It's a selfishness, like it's a degraded level. Trump claims to be a Christian but can't quote anything from the Bible, says the Bible's his favorite book but refuses to say what his favorite passage is. And he never talks about anything in terms of Scripture. And of course, if you know anything about Christians, the Bible is everything to them. And he talks about God infrequently, but he tries to pander to evangelicals. And he tries to use God as a way to support his decision making. He has people pray for him and pray around him, but he's not a godly person. He's a huge ego person that's all about himself, and he encourages people to be all about themselves, and he disparages all these other groups that not are a part of his group. He's a low consciousness, low level person who does, bullshit WWE fake assassination attempts, embraces WWE and these brute level, he's a big part of boxing and UFC and all that kind of crap, brute level stuff. He's a bully and wants to use American military to force his way. He's manipulative. He's a liar. He bullies his way with the tariffs and all the things that he said to the people that were, he disparages immigrants and, the rest of these people. He's, racist and the way that he talks about all these different levels of people. I mean, subtle racism and, it's more classism. He made up bullshit things about the Haitians eating dogs. He's appealing to your fear of immigrants, his fear of people who are different than you, your fear of, he's talking basically to white America, saying that these gays and liberals and all these people and all these Joe Biden people, the deep state are all wrecking your country and that you should be scared of them and angry at them and they're taking advantage of you and Canada's been fucking you over for years, like all this kind of bullshit, right? Even the good people that have been nice to you are somehow everyone's against you and screwing you over. He's appealing to your lower nature. And yet these Trumpers have divinized this motherfucker and make him into the second coming of Jesus or some sort of saint here to liberate you from all these evil doers. These people all suck. I'm not saying they don't suck. Everybody sucks now. We're all, lower vibrational beings and are getting lower with each generation, stupider and more entitled. And I mean, we're de-evolving, weaker, idiocracy. I mean, it all. We know what's happening. But Trump's come along to all these right-wing dopes that have for years believed that they're somehow superior to everybody else, and they're not. And that they're somehow truthers because they have these, so-called conspiracy theories about the deep state type of liberal bullshit agenda when the right-wing military-industrial complex and the right-wing Reaganomics and all these fucking, anti-poor people agenda, right? Moving wealth to the 1%, which is a long-time Republican thing, that the right wing is just as bad as the left wing. And it's part of a nefarious controlling system of a left-right paradigm. And Trump's appealing to your beliefs, your long-time beliefs, and telling you you've been right all along while he fucks you over and he, steals your bullshit, like your rights and your beliefs and things, and he undermines them whilst agreeing with you, making you feel like you're being heard and seen, even though he doesn't listen to anybody else's opinion, doesn't really know what you believe. He just has learned to parrot and say the things that you want to hear. And you'll treat him, the Trumpers treat him like he's the exalted one. Now, if Trump appealed to your higher nature, and he talked about love and, embracing your fellow citizens and whatever, and he was a flim-flam, fake guru, cult leader piece of shit, but he was at least appealing to your higher nature, you'd have some sort of excuse. I mean, any of you dumb fuck Trump supporters that are here, he's appealed to your lower nature, low vibrational bullshit, and he's dumbed down the country and dumbed down the Republican Party. And he's wrong about like most of the shit. He just makes up all this shit, just to motivate, to get a response from the crowd, pandering to the crowd. And yet he has a completely different agenda. He was a Democrat for a while, gave money to the Clintons. I mean, he's a Democrat up until 2009. He never really was a Republican, doesn't believe in Republican things. He believes in, like, there's a part of the Republican Party that's for rich white dudes, or rich people in general, and rich white people specifically. And he's into that part of the Republican Party. He's not into the anti-abortion shit. He paid for women's abortions. Like, he's not anti-abortion. He's not into God. He's not into any of the, the higher things that are in the Republican Party. He's against all those things in his personal life, but he doesn't care. He'll pander to the people, pretend he's a part of that. But in reality, he's bringing everyone down to a lower level, appealing to your fear, cultivating your fear as a weapon, your anger as a weapon, and your hatred, and bringing your hatred out of you. And, he's shown himself as a selfish piece of shit that's thrown his own supporters under the bus time and time again, his friends under the bus. He's he doesn't, like, he's disloyal. He has all the worst type of character qualities. He's displayed this since he's been on The Apprentice and he became a public figure. And you still fell for it, even though he keeps on showing you himself over and over again, and you keep on treating him like he's the exalted one. And for that, you earn the title of dumb fuck. So I'm going to talk about this too. This is not the only piece to it, but that's on you. That's the part that's on you. You want to go to a lower level. You want somebody to bring you to a level of hate and anger and this kind of bullshit that only creates a civil war, right? He's pushing a civil war. And yeah, I know how bad the liberals suck too. I'm not diminishing how bad the liberals suck, but this isn't about the liberals. This is about dumb fuck Trump supporters and why they're dumb fucks. Anyways, here are the comments. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I got some wonderful comments to get to. These were mostly related to my Trump video. Let me get the full title here. So today is Thursday, July 10th. I've made my video that's going to be up tomorrow, so this will be my Friday video, though, that'll be up for you guys on Saturday. And kaboom, Trump lied about Epstein. Where are all the dumb Trump truthers now? You can't swear early on in the video. That used to be the thing. I don't know if it is anymore. YouTube is pretty lax now. But you get the idea. So the first comment, there is a series of them. And the person says, "You're getting really bad at calling people negative names, such as morons, etc. Yet somehow you think you have a moral high ground. I'm unsubscribing now. I've had enough of your condescending perspective." And then somebody wrote, "Such a delicate little flower, snuggle up with your crying pillow a bit, and you'll feel right as rain." And then somebody else wrote, "Don't let the door hit you." And in parentheses, where the good Lord split ya, is how the saying goes. And there were a couple more. Then one more here. "I'm sure there are still channels out there that do nothing but lavish praise upon Trump and say that he's the best thing ever. Who knows? Who knows everything and never makes mistakes because he's like a saint. Those channels are starting to disappear. But if you look real good, you might find one of them." So I want to focus on this person's use of the word condescending, me as condescending. Because was there anybody who's more condescending than Trump and his fucking acolytes that get out there and they talk in a totally dismissive way of everybody else but them and their point of view? I mean, all of them. Trump's appointed morons and all the people that follow them, all the people that are Trump fans, and the way they treated Joe Biden and the Democrats in a condescending way, and Joe Biden being senile, which they were right about. Just like now, the mainstream media is right about Trump and Trumpers. But to use a word condescending when you're a fucking Trumper, right? Because this person's only upset because I am calling him a dumb fuck, and I'm not calling him personally a dumb fuck. I'm calling the act or the consciousness of following Donald Trump and praising him and believing he's still a good guy and he still has your best interest at heart. When the jury's been out for fucking years, but especially now. I mean, once he did Operation Warp Speed and he got worked on COVID and he acted in a totally petty way and fucking weak way after the election and he sold out all his people. I remember how bad he sold out the QBs and the January 6thers. He threw them completely under the bus after getting worked and causing that, debacle, falling into that trap that was so, obviously set for him when unless he was in on it, and then there's that, right? But either way, he showed himself as a real piece of shit then. I mean, he's always been a piece of shit, but he showed you that how selfish he is. When it came to him and anybody else, it's always about, he's like the captain that goes down on the ship and he's stepping on babies' heads, using babies as life preservers. And, like fucking, the guy will do anything to save himself. And everybody else is expendable because he's the great one. He's the chosen one. And he's a selfish prick. I mean, there's no one more selfish than Donald Trump. Like, he's just the ultimate in selfish. And he'll throw a whole country or world into the shitter just to, prop himself up. And that's the fucked up dude. Like, there's lots of selfish people. We're all a little bit selfish. And we all have our selfish moments. But Donald Trump takes it to a new level. I mean, he's like the superhero of selfishness and condescending and condescension. He's as condescending a person. And all those Trumpers who came, well, let me go to the next comment. So this person writes this. It's a long-ass self-promoting comment. Same video. I'm sorry, but aren't you Christian? You have faith in Christ, right? I've been watching you for over 5 years and using words like dumbfuck Trump supporters, LOL. In Trump's last administration, it didn't matter. I know who Trump really works for. And I did tell a lot of those so-called Trump supporters the day will come when he show his true colors, and he has. So this is one of those people that's got to pat themselves on the back and tell everyone how great they are. So here's the thing about this. If you're so smart, you've been watching me for 5 years, and you still think I'm a Christian, now, me calling people dumb fucks is not okay in Sajbarg either. I mean, I'm not calling, I'm not going up to people and say, hey, you're a dumb fuck, because that would be rude. And I'm not doing it person by person. I'm doing it as an amalgamation or, a mindset, a cult, right? Anybody who falls for Trump's bullshit now is a dumb fuck. And it comes from a couple of places. One, we all have our moments of dumb fuckery. We all do stupid things. We all are dummies. And we all have our moments where we fall for something and we follow somebody or we believe in something that's bullshit. We all have our moments. And I don't care. Like, I'm not judgmental because I did my stupid shit, right? I did stupid shit in my 20s. I used drugs and alcohol when it wasn't like I didn't even enjoy it. Just doing stupid shit. And being a punk and a bad attitude, underachiever. Like, I don't, like, people think that I have a big ego, but I don't, because I know, I was a low functioning person. I mean, being an underachiever is the worst. If you're an underachiever, if the best you can do is follow Trump, like, that's as high as you can reach because you're a dumb fuck. You're not as smart as the average person, but you're doing your best, and you're doing your best, right? Like, that's all you can do. If doing your religion is all you can do, even though your religion sucks. I mean, that's good because you're doing something that has to do with God, or at least kind of has to do with God. And so, like, I'm not judgmental of people who are doing their best. And as being an underachiever, as I was, I wouldn't say I'm an overachiever now, but I guess in some ways I am, certainly spiritually, because of, the Sajmark system. But, I don't have some sense of being better than people because of my lack of success, right? And my lack of whatever. And my stupidity and my own, emotional bullshit and things like that. And whatever was going on with me, whatever victim consciousness I had, things like that were keeping me from achieving what I should have been able to achieve, right? Based on my talent level. But in terms of me, like I've been harsh lately because I'm just, I've been doing this for a while and there's just stupid shit. It's like, why is this even a part of why is the news even a thing now? Why are people watching what Donald Trump does? Like, it's kind of good entertainment. It's good for me because I can make fun of it and do whatever. But, there should be zero people taking Donald Trump seriously. I mean, anybody with the triple digit IQ should be able to see through Donald Trump's bullshit. Anybody with any sort of consciousness, and even if you're a double digit IQ, but you've lived a long time, I mean, IQ is kind of a faulty way. It's really a consciousness. Some people just don't have the ability for abstract thought. They don't have it. They're not developed enough, and that's fine because that's where they are. But the rest of the people, I'm not talking about those people are dumb fucks for following Trump, but that's all that, they're just, that's what they're capable of. If it isn't Donald Trump, it'll be somebody else because they're not capable of like abstract thought, right? But these people were obnoxious and they wrecked the truth community and made my job harder. Not that I like hate them or I'm like against them, but I recognize, they were nightmares because everyone who's in the truth community, we have to listen to, you don't have to listen to, but when we do tune into any mainstream bullshit, or we talk to any mainstream bullshit person, and if we're friends on Facebook with mainstream bullshit people who buy into the bullshit mainstream narratives, we got to hear all the time how wrong we are and how bad we are for society, whether we're anti-vaxxers or crazy conspiracy theorists, and how we're killing everybody, and we're responsible for COVID because we're not taking the vaccine, and all the bullshit that turned out to be false, and be ostracized and be, all the things that happened, like to us as a community, being deplatformed, being, getting community guideline strikes, all that shit that we went through. And for someone like me this is their job, we had the dumb fuck QBs and the dumb fuck flat earthers and these dumb fucks that were out there arrogant as fuck, condescending as fuck, coming to my channel, making shitty videos, telling me that I'm not going far enough into their dumb fuckery, dumb fuckistan, and that I'm not going far enough into it. That was just, it was hard to deal with. Just difficult person. I got tens of thousands of comments from people like this. And I had to compete against shit fucking videos that were, sensationalized, that were full of bullshit, disinformation, that not only were, going to be more popular than the videos that I made and things like this, but in terms of all that stuff, they're still arrogant and they're still, these Trumpers, they'll never give up. And even though that they were, they knew they were wrong after the fucking January 6th bullshit, they came back and fell in line with Trump and they did it again. And now Trump is showing them how bad he fucking actually is. And the sick part is these liberal pieces of shit media people who have been lying and putting out disinformation and gaslit people about Joe Biden not being fucking having Parkinson's, and eventually we found out he also had prostate cancer at the same time, and that he was completely unfit for office, and they carried water for that motherfucker for years, and now they're right about Trump, and everything they said about Trump has come true, and they're gloating, and it sucks to watch, and it's all because of the dumb fuck Trumpers. And so that's why I'm saying what I'm saying, because at some point you just got to realize you were a dumb fuck and admit it. We all do stupid shit, and you just have to admit it. All you have to do is say, I'm a dumb fuck. So let's get back to this comment. I'm not going to read the whole thing because this person's just full of themselves. I myself had to ask those supporters that question 4 years ago, and not one will stop supporting him, even for the proof is before their faces. Yes, he had ties with Jeffrey. It's not like this crap wasn't meant to come back. It was meant to people know he's seen with Jeffrey. Of course, I'm not sure. No one of us will know the truth. Then again, why worry about it? Nothing one podcast can do. Um, and it goes on for that and says, here, this is where it gets back into me. I shouldn't have to tell someone your choice of words is up to you, but you use the words being what you claim is nothing but a hypocrite if you're Christian, then be that if you're not Christian, then stop acting like you are. The system will crash, no doubt, presently. So these are, people who are trying to blame me. And I have nothing to do with it, right? Like I have, I have zero blame. Am I making it better? I don't know for some of you, but I have an actual solution. Dumb fucks is what I want to call them, and if you don't like it, you can leave. It's my name for them. Just like Trump comes up with nicknames. You guys all like Trump nicknames, all you Trumpers. Not that this person's a Trumper, according to their comment, but Trump has a lot of good nicknames, and I laughed at some of them. Some of them are funny. Trump has derogatory nicknames for anybody that opposes him. And, my nickname for him is Fish Boy, amongst other things. And his followers are dumb fucks. And that's pretty accurate. I've been right about so many things, and I'm right about that. And it's, every day it looks more right. so if you don't like it, you can leave. There's plenty of people that can, are nicer about it or whatever it is. But sometimes, a person just has to hear they're a dumb fuck and just, get the slap of reality hitting them in the face so that they'll change. And not that I'm doing that, but, they've been difficult to deal with. And, this is the result. As arrogant and condescending and aggressive as the QBs and the flat earthers and the Trumpers and all these people have been, the right-wing dopes who were never really truthers and came in and wrecked a truth community that was going to be wrecked one way or another. So I don't blame them for that, but they're the ones who did it, right? And they still just won't fucking get it. How many times does your husband have to beat you before you leave him, right? That kind of shit. How many times does somebody have to abuse you before, and you have options? It's one thing if you didn't have options, but how many times does something like that has to happen before you leave the person? Because, and also you're lying about the person and saying it's one thing that you're getting beaten and you're scared to leave or, these things. I can totally appreciate that. But if you're lying to yourself about what a great person this person is, when they're running you down, beating the shit out of you, telling you're a piece of shit, and that's what Trump's doing to you, and his fucking dumbass people. He's not beating down the Democrats. I mean, he's hurting different groups of people, but he's really wrecking it for you because you're going to get fucking blamed for this. When this turns around, people are going to fucking hate MAGA people. When this all shit goes down, MAGA people, I mean, you're going to have to hide your fucking hats and your bullshit fat fucking beer bellies, and run and fucking duck your heads and shit and shave off your mullets and because, when this shit goes down, everyone's going to be pissed off at you. All right, so then this comment just came in. I was just going to do those comments, but then this one came in as well. Same video. And again, with that first one that said condescending, the people don't care about the behavior. They just care that it's being done to them, right? That you identify as a Trumper. The world is a stage and it's a complete cinema for the sheep and the folks that think they are clever than anyone else. At the end of the day, no one really knows what is going on. You think you do, but you are no different than the media with version of events that suits. Nobody knows exactly what is going on. It's no shame to admit that this is a circus. I enjoy your thoughts, but you're turning into an ego. I told you so. I told you so in parentheses. What you think you know, you don't really. So cut the ego and then know all the vibe. So there's nothing more egotistical than telling somebody else that they have to tone down their ego, right? But this person doesn't listen to me because I'm the one who called this a show years ago. I referred to this thing as the show. And I said, I was going to talk about it in different levels, because the idea of Maya illusion. This is a spiritual concept, and I've talked about Maya illusion quite a bit. Right? There's a story there of the God of preservation, the cosmic functionary of preservation. There's creation, destruction, and preservation. And the soul that's in charge. There's souls that are in charge of the weather. There are souls that are in charge of everything. Not just on planet Earth, but there's a soul that's in charge of death, right? When people think of the Grim Reaper. But it's not a negative thing. It's something that it's not a horror story. Everything has to die, and there's a soul that is in charge of death, and this soul has consciousness. Anything dying in any part of the universe, and this energy, this essence, this spiritual essence is there with them. Working on a multi-dimensional level, right? But there's the concept of Nara and Narayana, that Vishnu has a divine self that's Narayana and an ego that's Nara. So Krishna was Narayana, and Arjuna, the greatest archer in the world, Krishna's best friend, was his ego. And oftentimes they travel around the world, and the soul is teaching his ego stuff, right? And so the ego asks the soul, Nara asks Narayana, what is Maya? And Narayana says, well, I'll tell you, but first go get me a glass of water. And there's a creek over there, there's a river. And so he goes and gets him some water, and he's going to get out of the river, but he sees that there's a well, and there's a farming family there. And he goes and asks the farmer if he can get some water, and he looks over, the farmer's got this beautiful daughter. And he's like falls in love with her. It's like love at first sight. And so he marries her. And they have kids, and he's living this dream life. He's got this beautiful wife, and they're out, it's kind of a desert area, but there's water where they are, and they're really, they have these wonderful crops and animals, and he has great kids, and he's just really happy. He's just like, this is amazing. And it starts to rain. And then there's these torrential flash floods like we're having in Texas and North Carolina right now. And his wife drowns, his kids drown, and his father-in-law and his mother-in-law and all his whole family drowns. And he's swept up on the shore. And he's at the feet of Narayana. And he's weeping, and he says, Narayana, like, I lost my whole family. He's crying, like he tells him the whole fucking story. He's like, completely distraught. And Narayana goes, what are you talking about? You're only gone for 20 seconds. He goes, that's Maya. Where's my water, right? And so, this idea that whatever you're experiencing on Earth is an illusion, which I talk about. That's one level of what I talk about here. And, that we all have to have this idea that we're in like some sort of video game, and, our soul is our real self and all that kind of stuff. And so everything has a plan on a soul level that is hard to experience on a material level. So like I know all that kind of stuff to whatever degree you can know it. You can know it, but you still suffer your material life. Even the most spiritual people get sometimes pulled into the illusion because it's just what is. So like I don't, give a shit about any of that stuff. And I certainly don't have an ego about any of this stuff because I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. When my YouTube channel first took off and I was going through a divorce and my ex was trying to sell me out, and all the people in my organization, even though there's these predictions and teachings that they were all ignoring and I wasn't. I mean, some other people weren't, but for the most part, I wasn't a lot more than they weren't. I mean, most of them were ignoring or rationalizing all these things. And I dove into these things, and it made them uncomfortable, and they were always telling me in one way or another that I was doing it wrong, right? So these were my core people that did my spiritual stuff. And then, of course, as a truther, you're getting told you're wrong all the time. And I had been an underachiever and, difficulties in my relationship and the marriage, and I was, my ex was trying to blame me for it. And so when I had success as a YouTuber, and I started to be right about all these things, and I had insight that it was valuable to people. But there was a period of time where it was nice to be right. It was nice that I prophesized things or I predicted things and they came to pass. Like it was some sort of validation for me. And that passed. Like I don't care about now. It means nothing to me. I don't know what value it doesn't have. And so like I'm aware of it. So to accuse me of having an ego or like whatever the fuck this person is, Like you can't see me. Like you're trying to evaluate me and you're doing it from a lower level of consciousness, right? And I'm not claiming to be higher than you because of an ego. I'm claiming to be higher because I fucking work at this fucking Sajmark system of spirituality. And as you work at it, your level of consciousness goes up, right? And the more it goes up, the more you can't, when you look around at the dumb fuckery that's going on. I know that I'm a slacker or, an underachiever. And, I took something serious, the Sajmarg meditation and my spiritual journey, as much as I take anything serious. I mean, I think everything's a joke. And, I'm not, I mean, whatever. I'm not a perfectionist. I'm not, whatever. I'm not detail oriented. I'm not going to turn every stone over. And, I'm not built like that, right? But I've put some effort into this thing and I've had results. And I know that there's lots of people that could probably do it better, except they won't even fucking try it. I mean, they won't even acknowledge their souls and look for some kind of spiritual reason for existence. They don't question their materiality. They're fine with their miserable fucking material lives, and they don't want anything more. And the more I see it, it's depressing, right? Because we're a failed species, and there are consequences coming for us and for each individual person, and they're walking right into it, right? And like, not that I'm not, but I'm at least working towards something. Like I'm at least embracing my spiritual nature. I put effort into it on a daily basis. And the results are there for anybody to see, but you can't see it if you're not doing it yourself, right? Like maybe you can get an inkling of it, but you're trying, these people are trying to look down on me when they're not, if you want to raise to a higher level of consciousness, you have to brace the divinity within you and you have to minimize your ego. And I've done that to whatever extent, and other people, pretty much everyone else hasn't. It's sad, even people who do my spiritual practice, they don't really do it. And I see, my own personal issues with, my commitment to God isn't what it should be or what it could be, and, other things. As I get older, I care less about things, so I guess the commitment grows by default. But for people to come in and think they like fucking see me, you can't see me when you haven't elevated past the material world of existence, right? The material level. That great quote from Master Charji, that the lowest part of the higher, the spiritual, is still higher than the highest part of the lower, the material. So you can be the most powerful, most successful material person, but if you haven't stepped on the spiritual path, you're still on a lower level than a homeless dude who's embraced some level of his spiritual nature. Somebody who's on the first step, the initial first step of the spiritual journey. You can take one step into the spiritual field and you are now on a different level. You're on a different level of consciousness than all the people that aren't. And just the people who understand that there's divinity within them, even if they're crazy, even if they have, they go in and out of reality, even if they're, they have their issues, they're still on a higher level. And they have access to information and levels of consciousness that other people don't. And so, this is partly why I say dumb fucks, because it's a choice. Some people don't have that choice because they don't have abstract thought, and that is whatever it is. But the ones that do, and you still are choosing to be a dumb fuck, then be a dumb fuck and don't blame me because of your remedial existence, right? Let's get back to the comment here. I enjoy your thoughts, but you are turning into an ego. I told you so. What do you think you know that you really don't? So because it's cut the ego and the know it vibe, you are like the rest. You wait, then you sport the judge hat. When it's speculation on your part, you will never be anything else. And listen to yourself. Trump is stupid. Yeah, right, billionaire moving around the demons in this place. But he is stupid. Just listen to yourself, sir. All the ego with your judge hat on. No one knows anything. Well, I know you're a dumb fuck. I put it so much better than this person. Like, yeah, no one knows anything from the standpoint of there's various levels. And what do I say that other people don't say? I say that, it is from my, the teachings of Sajmark system and my interpretation of what's going on and the ending of a materialistic existence and a blooming into a spiritual renaissance this system has to go. This demonic system has to go, right? And it's God's will that it goes. And so if that's the case, then Donald Trump is doing God's work unknowingly. And you could give him credit or no credit, whatever, I don't care. It doesn't matter, right? I mean, that's like between each person, everything's between them and God. It doesn't matter what I say. Like, people think I'm being judgmental here, but I'm not judging people and don't want to. Like, I don't want to sit on a jury. I don't want to decide, what your fate is, right? I mean, only if it's something that has to do with me, right? It's something that if we cross paths and I would have to, protect my family or whatever it is, right? There you have to make decisions like that. But when people are doing things that, definitely have consequences for the rest of us. I mean, when Trump is doing things, it affects all of America and the world. Like, he just put fucking 50% tariffs on Brazil for, whatever arbitrary reason he did that shit. And he's, I mean, this is having an effect. But is he doing God's work? If the system coming down will open up, a new spiritual evolution. So, like, there is these various levels to think about these things, which I always talk about. Like, I sometimes cover the official story the way that people say the official story is. Sometimes I cover it on a spiritual level. Sometimes on a lower level, of a truther level. It's just, there's different ways to look at it. And, very little of it matters other than the decisions that you have to make. And it's easy for me to make my decisions. They're already made before they, before the time to decide is even there. Like, I already know what I'm going to do when I know that there's a choice point, right? And I know that, I'm going to look for what my soul within me and my soul and God want me to do. And it's going to be fairly obvious by the time it's, before even the time that it's just to decide. I knew what I was going to do when the vaccine was coming out. I knew what I was going to do in all these different things. And so, for me, my job here is to remind people that they have God within them, they have divinity within them, and that's the only solution, because only embracing the divinity, your divine self, can you evolve to being something that would demand or create a system that would be a reflection of what your best version of yourself. When your ego embraces your soul, you become the best version of yourself as you venture on your spiritual path. And these are saints, what people refer to as saints. And if everybody did that, the world would be transformed. And that's a unique idea. It's not my idea. But for Americans who don't even know this shit because their religion sucks, and their religion has done everything possible for them to not embrace the teaching by Jesus that the kingdom of heaven is within. That negates, all the other bullshit about heaven, right? And all the bullshit about Jesus being the only person to bring you to heaven. Because if he was, it would be able to bring you to the heaven within you. Which, why would you need him for that, right? I mean, he could help you. Any person who's gone into their spiritual journey can help you and enhance your ability to do, what you can do yourself. But everyone needs teachers and trainers. So yeah, sure. But this idea that heaven is somewhere in outer space and, beyond the fucking firmament, right? Say firmament 3 times and click your heels. And you'll wind up on a flat earth. And so, all this kind of biblical bullshit when, he has a teaching that the kingdom of heaven is within. Divinity is inside of you. Without God, you don't exist. You have to have a soul that animates. I mean, the ancient yogic Hindu culture and these ancient cultures that discovered the soul and the subtle bodies, and they had worked a bunch of this shit out, and now it has been lost to the majority of people who are, 99.9 materialistic and maybe a little bit spiritual. Only, the Oprah Winfrey spiritual people that embrace spirituality just so they can have a better life. They're trying to use their spiritual self to create their best life instead of the opposite, where you suffer materially so that you can move forward on your spiritual path. But anyways, that's why I say dumb fucks. So let's get into the other things here. Okay, so today's Friday, July 11th. I'm just gonna do a quick voiceover. I got a bunch of stuff coming in, farm stuff to do today, and so I do this voiceover video, and then I'll cover more of the debacle of Trump. There's just all this stuff coming in. So to go with everything I just said here, that I've said, I've talked about this over and over again. Our opinions don't matter. I mean, they matter in terms of the way we interpret events, with gratitude being the best possible way that we can go about any situation, being grateful. Gratitude is the best way to go about our, whatever our thing is, the traumas that we have. And the worst way is victim consciousness, getting mad at God, blaming the world, feeling like everything's unfair. And so, I was reminded of this movie, The Hereafter, which was a Matt Damon movie where he was a psychic. And Clint Eastwood directed it. And it was an interesting movie and had a lot of merit to it. I haven't seen it in some time. But the gist of it was that Matt Damon was a legitimate psychic. And he couldn't be in any relationships. He was dating this woman as one of the major scenes. And the woman's, they're having a positive relationship. And then she asks him to do a reading. And she thinks it's going to be goofy or whatever, psychic stuff. And when he does the reading, he tells her things she doesn't want to hear. And that's it for the relationship. And he knows, because he's like telling her, no, let's not do this. Because, people don't want to hear what's going to happen. Human beings have the capacity to imagine the future in a way that it never happens. Like either imagining disasters and fearful things. I mean, that's one of the ways that Trump has worked people, by scaring them of what could be and then delivering a solution. And, the things that are beyond your ability to bear. And so people will imagine a world like that, but also more often will imagine a future, dream of a future that is better than it possibly could be. And even if you get your dream, like you dream of wealth and fame and whatever, success, you're still not going to be happy. Like there's elements to it that are, that the dream didn't include, because it's, oftentimes you'll imagine something to be better than it actually is. It's why divorces happen. It's why, people, get depressed. It's all these things. Because even if you get your wishes, it's still not as good. Like if people think about things, whatever it is, their jobs, their marriage, their life, their whatever, in unrealistic ways. So when someone comes along and unveils reality to you, the future and what is now, you get mad at them. Like it's just what happens. That's why spiritual people don't do very well. Spiritual people, like really high developed saints and people, don't have a quality following, because people don't want to hear the truth. They want somebody to tell them what they want to hear. That's why Trump has, tens of millions of followers, and spiritual masters have like 200 people, and like a bunch of them turn on him, so like it's a sad state of affairs, because people don't want people to tell them the truth, right? So this was what I was alluding to, what I was calling the Trumpers, the dumb fucks, because, it's you willfully whine someone to lie to you about something that, can't be. Like America can't be made great again. And, it's people like, well, what do I have to lose? Biden will win, or, Kamala Harris will, she'll be a disaster, whatever. So isn't like Kamala Harris was going to save the country. So, you could buy into Trump's bullshit, but I mean, it's prolonging your ability to accept what has to be, which is the collapse of our system. It's already collapsed because people have collapsed. And, aside from the epic debt and all this other stuff, like people are so incompetent, so self-centered, so weak, and it just keeps on getting worse. That's the number one telltale sign. And we all have to kind of admit it. So then what, right? So this is what I deal with here. And I offer a solution. It's not my solution. I didn't think it up. It's not my, necessarily what I wanted before I found it, which is going to connect to the divinity within you, which is, it's a whole different thing than you've ever heard of, right? I was thinking about this in terms of Christianity. Like somebody says, well, I'm a Christian, right? Like I heard somebody, maybe on the news yesterday, I don't know, maybe videos watching the person say, well, I'm a Christian. It was like one of these bullshit Republican Christian, fake Christian, whatever. And, when we don't say that in the Saj-Mark system, like the Saj-Mark system, I don't say I'm a Saj-Margi, I'm a Sri Ramchandari or whatever, like that's the name of the organization. We say we're Abhyasis, which is spiritual seekers. And an Abhyasi is a spiritual seeker that whatever you're using as a system in this life will change in the next life, right? You're on a spiritual journey. And you might be a Christian in this life, you might be a Jew in another life, you might be a Hindu or something, but at some point you have to find spirituality in each life. You're born into a religion, and the religion's there for the dumb fucks. It's there for remedial people. And, when the religion's good. And when the religion's bad, it's not really, it doesn't help anybody. It hurts the causes, right? The overall cause. So, but you don't think of yourself as I'm a Hindu or Christian or Jew or Muslim, because that's limited to the material world in this time period, because these religions won't be around forever. It's just like saying that you're an American or a Brit or a Somalian or whatever it is, right? Iranian. It doesn't matter. Like it's a short-lived thing. You're born into a physical body. You have a gender. You have a race. You have whatever talents and things you have. But like that's a temporary situation. Your soul's eternal. So your spiritual journey, you're a spiritual aspirant, right? You're on a spiritual journey, and your journey is defined by the things you have to overcome. The difficulties, and they don't have to be always huge. Sometimes it's a day-to-day thing, but the things you have to endure. And more often than not, if you were told that when you started any number of things, whether it was your career or your marriage or your whatever it is, that there were going to be these things that are really difficult, like really, whatever the conflict, whatever the traumas that you have, right? You wouldn't do it, right? You wouldn't want to do it. Like you want to dream about some like dream life that you're going to have, and like it's just how people do. And so that's why people who can see the future, people who tell you the truth, people can, recognize this stuff that I'm talking about. People don't want to hear from them, right? People don't want to hear this stuff because they just want to be told something that'll comfort them. They want to find some flim-flam person that'll lie to them about how great it's going to be because that's what they want to hear. Like I say all the time, if a movie was just, kind of the people were going through bliss and nothing really happened but them being happy and there was no real trauma, it would be the boringest movie ever. Like these, the concepts of all these, even like a stupid sitcom, there has to be a problem to overcome. People want to see people solving problems. They want to see drama. They want to see trauma. There's an introduction to, let's say the movie's like space aliens are invading, right? Something like that. And there's the beginning of the movie where the people are happy and they're content and they're going about their daily lives. And nothing big is happening. And you're waiting for the aliens to invade, right? Because you've seen the trailer. And then the aliens invade. But like the beginning part is just you getting to know the characters and seeing how their life is just going along great and everything's, normal life with just normal stuff. And nobody wants to see that shit. We want the aliens to invade, right? Because that's what that's the conflict and the trauma and things like this. And so, people's ability to rise up and undergo whatever they have to do. These are the things that you remember, the things that define you as a person, the issues that you have that you overcome, right? These are the moment. I mean, there's plenty of blissful, happy days, days without much stress. Or, I mean, some people, it's, stress is a daily occurrence depending on your circumstances. But, most people have some just normal days, whatever it is. And then you have the big events. And the big events, good or bad, usually have stress in them, usually require you to raise your level of whatever you have to do to succeed or fail in these other things, right? And so, you have a habits, and you have the things that you enjoy, the things that you feel you're entitled to as, the modern day person. And when those things are stripped away from you, and you have to reinvent yourself and create new habits and adjust to a new way of life, many people can't do that. It's just too much, right? And that's what I talk about here. And I think the writing's on the fucking wall, right? Both candidates, both parties are talking about the end of America as we now know it. If the other party wins, only we can save you from that, right? But if they're talking about apocalypse, both people in the news and media is making these videos, and this content with, TV shows and movies about apocalyptic and post-apocalyptic, and how many zombie movies and TV shows I saw. Maybe like on Netflix they had an Asian or an Indian movie. I think it was an Asian movie that featured zombies. Like, zombies are like a whole thing now, right? Because, zombies are a thing because zombies exist in, a different way, as do ghouls and vampires in our society. They're just not, the dramatic ones that you see in the movies and TV shows. They're, human zombies and ghouls and vampires just going along, dead inside, just sucking energy off the living, whatever. So all those things exist. And so, there's all of that. And so I offer a solution here, like I said, which is finding the divinity within you. And again, it's not my solution. And to me, it's the only solution. And, it helps you adapt and change to whatever your life befalls you. And instead of getting mad at God for the traumas that you're going to have to face, you are grateful to God for giving you the opportunity to work things off from past existences or whatever it might be, the things that you need in your life to help you bring you, closer to God, to pull more of the divinity out of you. And so the issue here for me and everybody else, for my specific thing that I talk about here, is that people could do that already. Like, we could all have a relationship with God. And some of it's because our religions suck, and some of it's because of our materialistic system. But each person could choose that, right? There's some people who crave a divine connection. They feel like they're missing something, and maybe they quit the path once they get on it for a little bit. I always talk about the Matrix character Cypher, who goes back into the Matrix, right? Because that's a real thing. People who wake up and then realize how hard it is and say, I just want to take the blue pill and go back to sleep. And that, the majority of people who wake up in one capacity or another realize it's so much harder to live consciously aware of what's really going on, even on just smaller levels, where that you have to read the ingredients, how exhausting it is to read the ingredients of everything, because people are lying to you and manipulating you, and the system is, and all these things. It's way harder for a person who's conscious to live than it is for people who are asleep. It's just easier to eat the poison and, take the vaccine and, take the whatever, the toxins in the foods, and do what everyone else says and listen to thing and pull the lever and vote and pretend that matters and all these things, right? That's way easier. It's way easier to go to sleep and give up and not be consciously aware of, just not just the bad things, but the good things and the divine aspect of your life. It's the people on the spiritual path have the most difficult lives, and also easy lives, because when you surrender to God at the highest level, then you don't have to care about things, and you just surrender to God and you do what God tells you to do. And you don't have to look at anything or be conscious of anything. You're going about your business, asking God, with this idea of you're doing devotional work, and you're doing whatever you can do to serve God, and you're all these things. It's an orientation where you no longer have to, all you have to think about one thing is serving God and doing whatever God wants you to do. And that's all you have to figure out. Like it becomes easy because none of these other things matter because, it's all the same to you. You're just doing one thing. You're serving God, and everything else is, just like a distraction or window dressing or whatever you want to call it. It's unimportant, right? Your job is just to serve God. The consequences of your work, whatever you do, the good, the bad, the ugly, that's all God. It's you're doing it for God. You're not responsible for anything that you're doing because you're doing what God wants you to do. So you don't have to worry about that. You just do what you're supposed to do. You serve God in the way that you're designed to serve God. You live your life with devotion and appreciation and gratitude for God. And then everything else is just, whatever happens is just what happens and it doesn't really matter to you. And the thing about it is, pretty much everybody can do that on some capacity. There's people without abstract thought, which I talked about earlier. In one of the other voiceovers, of course, there's things like that. But, people can do that on some level. People can be devotional. People can put God in front of themselves and, other people in the divine system in front of themselves. Like they can, not the America first, me first, Trump first bullshit I talk about, right? That, where you're putting yourself in front of everything and everybody else, your own selfish desires, your things that you want, you put those in front of God and everybody else. Whatever you're doing is the most important thing. And when you live a life like that, you're sad and lonely and you're doomed to, future bad lives and shit, working that shit off, right? Because the consequences that you receive from such behavior are negative. But that's the way people are oriented right now. They don't want to hear anything else. They want to hear what's good for them, what they think is good for them, and how that can be achieved. And this idea of democracy has really fed into that poorly, because democracy is about how they can tell you what you want to hear and get your whatever they get from you, money and allegiance and votes and whatever. In India, the politicians would go out to these poor villages and hand out bags of rice, $5 bags of rice or whatever it is, right? And they would be so happy, the people. They couldn't believe what they've just gotten because they're so poor, and that's a huge thing. A free bag of rice? Are you shitting me? And they would have this allegiance to the politicians, and no matter what the politician did, we had this. There was a woman who was a Bollywood in the Chennai area, the south part of India, the Brahmin area, and she was this big, heavy, overweight politician, and she got busted for having the equivalent to $10 million of monies that they weren't accounted for. Like, like someone just, she took bribes. And so they figured that the only way that she got this money was through bribes in a very corrupt, bureaucratic, where everybody takes bribes kind of place. She's the one who opened the floodgates. And so when my family and I were first at India, for our, like extended trip, it came out she got arrested. And Master Charji said that none of us who are, foreigners should go out of the ashram because there was riots and shit. And, it's a very passive place, a very passive people, but every once in a while they go ape shit, the people, they have these riots. And they were rioting because this woman had bribed people with bags of rice, and people loved her, but she was corrupt as fuck, right? So she was, not a good person, and she eventually got off. We were there for the whole thing. We had a visa crisis, so we had to go to the bureaucratic place where all the bureaucracy, the downtown area. We had to go to the immigration office and the police station that was, the massive, like these massive ones in the center of Chennai. And this is when she was let off. And the guy who wrote the charges against her, it was like a booklet. Like it was, hundreds of pages of her misdeeds. And the guy who let her off, the judge that wrote the judge that wrote the indictment was quite substantial. And the judge wrote a paragraph giving her, exonerating her, which is so totally corrupt, like just whatever it is, right? But this woman was very popular, because she looted whatever she looted for herself and took bribes and did whatever she did, and then she'd hand out some bags of rice to people, and they were forever loyal to her. That's why democracy doesn't work, right? Because democracy is about, them taking people who really don't have the ability to govern themselves. They don't have the ability for, this kind of political whatever bullshit thing it is. But they can be, so they're manipulated. People find out what they want to hear, what they need to, give them an Obama phone or whatever, give them a little trinket, and then, win their loyalty and these things, right? And the people who identify as Republicans and Democrats, it's usually because they think the group or their group and the groups that they care about are going to be taken care of more than if the other party wins. And it's not about doing what's best. And an honest person who came and told you what a worthless piece of shit you were and how you have to do better and how we all have to do better, which is what people would need to hear. Like, people would need to hear that they're not, your lives they're not good, right? You're not living a real life, and the system itself is, kind of responsible, but you've, bowed down before it and you've embraced it, and, you have your own responsibility in it. We've all embraced the system to whatever extent, and so there's consequences, and we've created, the system has gotten worse, and we've gotten worse, and, we're going in the wrong direction, and, there needs to be wholesale changes. And nobody wants to hear that. Nobody would vote for that, right? People wouldn't vote, because if they would vote for that right now, they could go and bow before God and say, God, what do I need to do? What do I have to endure? What do I have to... people don't want to hear from God, right? People don't want to talk to God. They don't want to have a conversation with God. They don't want to, people are scared of God. They're scared of what God would tell them. They don't want the truth, right? People are scared of the truth because all of the things I've just said, the way that people are living their lives. There's a great thing Master Charji said about Christians. Again, he was a St. Paul in a past life, and he was somebody who grew up in Christian schools. So he was, read the Bible and he understood Christianity. And he said, the Christians are scared of God. They don't want to go talk to God. They want to talk to God's son. They don't want to talk to the boss. They want to talk to the boss's son, which is, very accurate definition of Christianity, because, people, you can hear Christians all the time, and they conflate Trump with Christ or Christianity, and, all these, whatever it is they do. They equate America with Christianity, and that somehow America is God's Christian land, whatever. And none of those things are true, right? Christ didn't even live here. Christ didn't drop off secret scrolls to be found by the Mormons. Like, Christ wasn't, Christ had nothing to do with America. When Christ was alive, it was Native Americans that were here, right? It wasn't Jews. It wasn't people that he was, where he grew up as a Jew in a Jewish area, right? It wasn't, Arabs. It wasn't fucking white Europeans that would eventually become Christians. None of that stuff, his time was at a very specific place, and he had a very specific teaching that had nothing to do with America and the future. People have used this, politicians have used this to make it sound like, or to create this connection between Christ and America and manifest destiny in these things. And it has nothing to do with that, right? Your religion has to do with where you are and who you are as a person. But a government has nothing to do with your religion. In fact, we have a great thing, which is a separation of church and state. But people still conflate these two things, right? And, you can literally connect with Jesus right now. As a Christian, you could connect with God and Jesus, and you could ask him questions. People don't ask God questions because they don't want the answers, right? Like, that's the number one thing. This is why people don't talk to God. They don't ask the questions because God will give them answers that they don't want to hear. People don't pray to God for God's will to be done. People pray to God for God to change things because that's what they feel like they need, right? God, please change this. So, this is what's happened to our system and to our world. This is why we are where we are. I had a viewer, and I was talking about Christianity, and, back when I was a little bit, more hesitant to do so. And the person was being a dick about it, whatever it was. And, was leaving comments. Back when I would respond and have, I would respond to comments in a written way. And I said, why don't you just ask Jesus if what I'm saying is true? Because, I don't give a shit what you believe. I'm just putting stuff out there. And I said it a number of times. The person kept on commenting, and I just would write, why don't you just ask Jesus? And the guy wrote back, I did, and Jesus said you were full of shit. Like something like that. I'm like, you didn't ask Jesus, you lying piece of shit. You say that you're a Christian, but why don't you want to talk to Jesus? Why wouldn't you ask Jesus for the answers? Because I'm 100% sure Jesus would agree with what I'm saying, right? Because, he's not happy with the religion. Why would he be, right? He's not happy with what's happened with his teachings and his work and what Christianity has become and what Christians have become. And Christians don't want to hear that shit because people just want to believe what they want to believe. And that's why they avoid God. And that's why they, this is, everything I'm talking about. And I can speak from personal experience. When you ask God questions, you do get answers that you don't want to hear. When God shows you things, you see things you don't want to see about yourself and about the world. And you have to deal with things you could, probably don't want to deal with, or definitely don't want to deal with. So this is the whole point. Okay, so let me wrap this one up here. I mean, basically, that's all I need to say here.